So where we are with this now, I think that the blade needs some hand sanding. It's kind of close. It's always fun for me when you make a chef's knife and you want to bring it up to a good finish, because sort of the minute you use it, it doesn't have a good finish anymore. So it'll pay to get this to a good looking finish. We can do it relatively quickly. This will not get any etching or anything on it. It's just going to be as finished. So it's nice to have a good finish on the blade. A good straight lined hand sand always looks impressive. Again, if this were just a munitions grade weapon or tool like a machete or something, I'd be done. I'd stop here. That's good enough. But for a chef's knife, you want it to look good. And so an extra 20 minutes of hand sanding, which usually turns into an hour and a half of hand sanding, is well warranted in this kind of thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and start. I'm going to start, even though I finished this blade off with a Scotch-Brite finish, I'm going to start at 120 because there's going to be a scratch or two in here that need to get gone and get gone fast. So if I can get a good 120 grit sandpaper finish on here, then I can jump up pretty quickly, 220, 320, 400, 600, and I'll probably stop this at 600 grit with nice parallel lines that look good. So here we go, let's jump into this. Rule number one of hand sanding is don't stab yourself. That's kind of rule number one of a lot of things.
Any other tips for beginner sanders?
Yeah, so the kind of sandpaper you use really matters. If you go to your hardware store and you get some open coat aluminum oxide, sort of the brown stuff, it doesn't last very long. It really just crumbles off the paper, especially the lower grits, the more coarse paper. It pays to invest. This Rhino Wet paper is available through a couple of different merchants. I find supergrit.com has the cheapest, and you can buy it in bulk and you save a lot. They all come in 50 sheet packs. There's not really much case to get less than that. You'll go through it. If you're going to be making knives, you'll go through them. You can buy them by the sheet if you want to just get into it and see how you like them. But they're not super expensive, and it's well worth. I think when I bought all of this, I think it was, I don't know, $150 or something for all this sandpaper. And $150 sounds like a lot till you buy it a sheet or two at a time, and then you get there pretty quick. So invest in some decent sandpaper. I'm gonna go ahead and start this dry. Every now and then I'll jump in with some Windex as a lubricant. We'll just see how it goes. But one thing I want to make sure I don't do is sand over where my plunge grind is, because that'll round off the transition, and when I put my guard here, you'll see a line. So I'm going to do my best to stay away from jumping that hill. So what I'll probably do is use the sharp corner of the hard back, get in there and work on this sideways until I got a nice finish on it. That way I can work on the end as well. But you just want to use that to get up against, we're going with the old sandpaper lines or sand and grit lines, which is okay for here. We're just trying to get rid of them so you can then kind of come in at an angle. And just make sure you stop at that mark. You want to kind of angle your paper up. And if you stop at that mark, then you won't jump and round off the corners. And you'll see why that's important soon. But essentially, you want to just get rid of all of the linear scratches from the grinding up against here, and then you can really go to town further down the knife using bigger strokes and more powerful strokes. But this is like the color by numbers part where you have a really small paintbrush and you're right up against the lines and you get it all painted in, and then you can go to the big brush and go crazy. And I say it all the time, but it's a good idea not to get too enamored with your individual sheet of sandpaper. I know it costs money, but it doesn't cost as much money as your time. So it really pays to use it till it stops cutting and move on to the next piece. And this one's kind of stopped cutting. Sometimes you can find like fresh edges, and you can put those right at the end there and get a little more life out of the sheet. But the goal here is to stop hand sanding as fast as you can. That's the goal of hand sanding, to stop as fast as you can. I never realized how sandy philosophical I was. And remember rule number 1, don't stab yourself.
What the block is behind sandpaper?
Just briefly, but not for this video yet. Oh, okay, yeah. So for the backer for my sandpaper, I like to use small blocks. This is of G10 handle material that I would never end up using because it's green. So I just took a block, sort of squared the edges, put a piece of leather over top, and just cut it to this shape. I have longer blocks as well that I can really get both hands on. And a lot of people use narrower blocks than this because you can get more pounds per square inch on less square inches with the same number of pounds. And it's all a matter of taste. I like to use this block because I can grab on the sides of it with a section of sandpaper. But it's got a leather facing because that'll make a sort of a soft contour and kind of fill in some of the valleys if your blade isn't dead flat. But it's also got a hard back that's flat for doing handles and stuff like that, because if you have a compliant face and you're sanding over a stainless steel pin and some relatively soft wood, it'll make that stainless steel pin sit proud because it'll preferentially eat the wood and not the stainless steel pin or some other metals that are hard. So you really want a flat part, a hard flat face for that. Also for things like metal spacers, or anytime there's metal up against wood, you really want something flat and hard to do that sanding, so you don't end up with things that you can shut your eyes and feel that are annoying. They don't feel annoying until somebody points it out, and then they're really annoying. So I'm pointing it out. Don't do it. I'm nervous that the pressure I'm putting on this old ass piece of wood is going to snap off and fall down and break the tip. So I figured I'd stick that bucket there just in case. Let me show you a quick tip on ripping sandpaper. If you have a relatively sharp edge, you can kind of get a... I'll do it with other paper. No, didn't work. I'm going to call that a dull edge. Stupid dull edge. So, may as well show that little trick again for the beginners. So, if you have everything is sanded down just fine, this isn't exactly the case right now, but let's say you find that there's one little scratch and the rest of it is perfect. Now, you can, if you want, remove metal from all the rest of it until it comes down to that imperfection level, or you can find where it is. You put your thumb over it you put a piece of paper between your thumb and the knife and just give it a drag. Always go in a direction at least diagonal, but best is perpendicular to the scratch until you can see that it is truly gone. And that won't create a huge dip, but it will create a space where that little scratch is gone now. And it doesn't take as much time as sanding down the rest of the whole knife. All right, getting real close on this grit. on this side. Yeah, that looks good. One little bit right up here. All right. Well, you don't have to put that away. I'd say you don't have to put that away. Mm-hmm.